Leslie McDonel is a fabulous actress and one heck of a singer, and she is gracing the Austin stage again. We'll talk about that in a moment, but she is here to perform the musical Beautiful, the Carole King musical, and so delighted to have you back in Austin.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's this will be running through the Topfer, through September 8th at the Topfer Theater. Very intimate setting, perfect for this kind of a show. And I wanted to say that some of us grew up with, you know, the hairbrush in our hand, singing to Carole King's Tapestry in the mirror. And then, well, personally graduated to the curling iron with the cable. So what does this mean to you to take on this amazing role? And it's from the Broadway production that came out just...
about 10 years ago. Yeah, I mean, it means so much. Huge shoes to fill, of course. Like you said, you know, so many people are in love with her. So that helps me. It's a service to me in some ways, because the minute you step on stage, people already love you, you know? I mean, if they're familiar with her, there'll be some young people probably that are just learning about her from watching the show. But for the most part, people already know and love her. So then my job just becomes to do her justice, you know.
Wow. Well, you have starred in Broadway musicals, in Broadway shows, I should say, American Idiot, and then you've done much touring of musicals like Hairspray, Grease, Legally Blonde, and of course, who can forget your role as Janis Joplin here at Zach Theater. Two very different roles, Carole King, Janis Joplin.
Yes.
How is that different, and how do you prepare for such a role wherein you're acting and singing?
Well, they're similar. Playing Janis and playing Carole are similar in the fact that everyone knows and loves the songs. Mm-hmm. With both productions, I just started with the music, where I would just listen to them sing over and over for months and months as soon as I knew I had the part, and just really get their essence. The way they sing, what part of their body they're singing from, emotionally how they sing, in my brain, in my body, so that once I take it over, I'm bringing myself to it, not copying them, but at the same time, they're always in the back of my ear, because you know that's why people are here at the show. They want to hear Carole King. They don't want to hear, you know, me do my version of her songs. They want to hear her, but then also not an impersonation.
Right, that's what I really noticed. I mean, You have an amazing instrument. Your voice is an amazing instrument. And Carole King is a wonderful singer, but we don't always think of her first as a singer, but everyone's recorded her songs. And of course, Tapestry, we do think of her as a singer. So how do you balance that with bringing her into the story and not...
Well, I think it's so funny that Carole even said that about herself, because, you know, sometimes it's just how you think of yourself, but she just didn't try it. As soon as she did, it's one of the best albums of all time. Right. And it's because of the emotion she brings in everything she does. And I think you just don't know that you're going to touch people until you do. I mean, I remember when I was young and I was 5th or 6th grade and I got my first school solo and I was really scared. I wasn't one of those kids that was like, everybody watch me, I'm going to put on a show in the living room. I was very kind of shy about it. So I was very nervous. And then once I did, I remember very distinctly this kind of turn in my confidence, because all my little friends' dads were crying. Wow. And it shocked me in such a way that I thought, wow, I have this like power inside of me, or this thing that somehow touches people when I do this. So is something that I should take care of, is my singing, and try to be better at it, because maybe that's something I can provide, a service I can provide in the world, which is the whole point of life, right? To figure out what you're going to do with your life. So I think that, you know, she did it in a much bigger scale than me, but probably had that same realization where she started singing and people reacted in a way where she said, oh, I should keep doing this. It's bringing people some kind of joy.
What was the song that you got to sing in the musical?
It was, I am Susie Snowflake dressed in a snow white gown. Beautiful. Very moving song, yeah.
How lovely. That's just wonderful. And tell us a little bit about your process it sounds like you started with singing, then into acting.
I actually started with acting at Dallas Theater Center. I'm from Dallas, started taking acting there. And actually, my very first play that I did was Really Rosie, which Carole King wrote.
That's amazing.
And I did not know that until recently. So that's a pretty full circle moment for me. Yeah, I started taking acting, had an agent, auditioned for film and TV and all that when I was little, and then started taking professional voice lessons, I think, when I was 10. And then went to the Arts Magnets in Dallas and then school in New York City and just on from there.
Well, I've heard, how is the story told? I know you're singing a heck of a lot, but how much talking do you get to have about, writing the songs?
One of my favorite things about this show is that it's a huge cast. It's a big cast, 18 people. So I'm not on my own at all. I feel very supported, and we have an amazing cast at Zach Theater too. Her first biggest hits were with the Shirelles and the Drifters. So we have the Drifters, we have the Shirelles, all four of them. So four of each band, yeah. So that's exciting. They're incredible. They really take people back to her first hits, which I also think is probably the biggest revelation about her life, is just all the hits that she wrote. I don't think people realize how many hits she wrote and how young she was when she made them. It's just incredible part of her story.
That really is, and I was not as familiar with that she wrote for the Shirelles and all these other groups, and so many people recorded her pieces. I know that afterwards, but tell us about her process of songwriting. Have you had a chance to chat with her?
It seemed to come, I don't know, from my point of view and what I've learned about her, it seemed to come so easily to her. I mean, she was just sitting down at the piano at 16 and writing these songs that are still major hits today. So I can't tell you, I don't have that talent at all. I don't play any instruments. I pretend to play along with Alan, who's our amazing music director. I'm pretending on stage and people are telling me that it looks like I'm playing, so I don't know, I'm just going with it. But I can't understand her talent of songwriting and what she can do on the piano. It's just incredible, but it seemed to come sort of easily to her.
I love that they're bringing in other songwriters in this play, Douglas McGrath play, that they bring in Goffin and Barry Mann, and tell us about some of the others.
Well, I think that's why this show and her story makes such an incredible musical, is because she wrote all of her first big hits with her husband. So it's a love story just as much as it's a success and creative, compatibility story. They met really young, then they had these huge hits when they were 17 and 19, and built a family from there. And so the struggles that came with having children so young, and that's all played out in the story. And, I haven't actually done a musical in a long time that has this many scenes.
Wow.
But, I don't want to deter that from anyone. Oh, we really like when you get to the music, because in this it's so interesting and captivating that everyone says, wow, this show flies by faster than most musicals I see, even though there's so many scenes, because I think they're captivating, learning about her life.
Most of us are singing along, hopefully in our heads, while we're watching.
Yeah, I have heard it's been a discussion in the audience of how much people should sing along. I think people are really wanting to sing along, and then they're getting shushed a little. So yeah, I bet it's hard not to sing along.
I'll contain myself, for sure.
I don't know. I'm not the one telling you to contain yourself.
Now, what about this production? I know Cassie Abate is directing this and has been heralded for doing a great job with this particular musical, actually making it flow better. What happens? Is the music sort of constant and the action constant? Yeah,
well, she has the ensemble moving all the pieces. Because, we're not in a big Broadway theater with automation where and the set just comes off and on when you push a button. So she had to be creative about that. But the actors are doing it, and they're kind of in a swirling motion. And then lights fade and this vignette kind of feel. And then you come up and we're in a new room. We're in a new world. But it does bring a more personal sort of everyone's a part of the world feel to it, where you see like my childhood best friend, she's moving my piano and then she leaves and she's in the same outfit. So sometimes beautiful things can come from, technical limitations or whatever it is.
And then, I wonder which you prefer. I mean, there's something about the assurance of the timing of the big Broadway sets.
I mean, of course, I'm going to say I prefer this because it's my experience.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just saying, I love this one because it's what I know,
But I like the sound of the intimacy of this.
And I think Cassie's fantastic. I love the way she is with actors, and she has such a positive and supportive. She creates such a vibe in the room from the get-go that everyone feels very free to explore and not afraid to try things, and very supported by her.
Well, many of us will know that Cassie Abate, worked at Southwestern for many years and was recently named the assistant.
Yeah, she'll be the associate artistic director of ZAC, and that's just been announced a couple weeks ago, so that's very exciting. We're all very excited.
Cannot wait to meet her as well. Well, what is your personal Carole King moment? Like, when do you first remember knowing of her and the first song?
You know what's so funny? Her songs, I've been asked this before, and her songs are just such a part of the tapestry of American culture and music that I can't even pinpoint when. I think it's sort of by osmosis that you know all of her songs.
True.
Aretha Franklin is probably my favorite singer of all time, so that's definitely the song that I have the biggest impression of in my memory when I was probably 15 or so, of singing along to that song. But all the oldies, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, and all those songs I was singing since I was very young. I mean, I've always loved her.
And in most cases, the lyrics were by Jerry Goffin.
Yeah, always when they worked together.
That's amazing. And the words to Beautiful they always resonated, but they seem really important at this time in our history in the world.
Well, that was her breakup album, you know. Now we have Taylor Swift and everybody doing that, but she wrote one of the first breakup albums, and it went pretty well for her.
Well, things have been going great for you since you were quite young, and you had an agent when you were young. Do you have any aspirations in the future that you're just hoping to sing?
You know, I've had a few friends lately become backup singers for really huge artists touring the world, you know, like at the big arena concerts. That's something that's kind of recently gotten on my list of something I would love to have, that feeling of singing to those massive, massive arena crowds.
Are you thinking the Rolling Stones? Or?
Well, I have a friend that sings with them, and I have a friend that sings with
her.
Rod Stewart, and I have friends that sing with Taylor Swift. So I'm like, that would be quite a fun next thing to do. But also, I think eventually I would like to be back on Broadway too, and eventually I'd like to have the guts to write something of my own as well.
Awesome. Well, aside from doing musicals, you also do cabarets, is that right?
Yeah, well, I have a solo concert that I do around the world and on ships, and I'm getting to travel a lot lately, which is really fun.
Well, this is a classical station, but of course Carole King is classic music, period. But I will ask you, do you listen to any classical music?
You know, I do. I found myself when I lived in Los Angeles, that's all I listened to in my car because it was the only thing that brought my stress level down from the driving.
Okay.
I love listening to classical while I drive. Also, I grew up with a dad that's a big opera buff, so we always, especially like on Sunday morning, I remember just family breakfast and opera, and he would be getting teary-eyed, and we would, make him very emotional. It's a big family childhood memory of mine.
With the power of your voice, had you ever considered a career in opera?
Well, all of my first vocal training was all classical, because that's like the basis of singing. But then I think when I started in college, a couple years into college, I said, you know, we kind of need to now take the power and the basics of what I've learned so far and apply it to pop, because that's clearly what I'm going to be singing now, and what my style is. And if I keep just training in opera, I'm not going to be able to flip it over when I need to. So, but yeah, that's definitely my groundwork.
Well, I want to let our audience know that you are going to sing for us today with the musical director of Beautiful,
the Austin legend himself, Alan Robertson.
Yes, and you actually did Janice together, didn't you?
And Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Oh my gosh, okay. So you
and lots of concerts. Well. During the pandemic, we got to do those ZAC concerts out in the plaza, and I think Alan and I did eight of them together.
If I'm not mistaken, you're going to sing for us today your favorite Carole King song, which you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Natural Woman, and of course, Beautiful.
Beautiful, which is what closes the show.
Oh, wonderful. Well, folks, you can catch Leslie McDonel and the whole ZAC crew. It's a big cast. There's lots of music. Most of us will know all of the music, even if you're only born 30 years ago. You've probably heard, maybe your parents or your grandparents had the music.
Thank you so much for having me. It was nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.